Hello, my name's Aaron. This is just a quick video on how I build arrows using TopHat piles. Now, don't work for TopHat. I'm not sponsored by anybody. It's just something I've not been able to find on YouTube or anywhere. So I thought I'd just make a quick video. I prefer the TopHat piles because when you're pulling out, they don't come off. A friend of mine, guy I shoot with, we were at the pagoda shoot earlier last year actually. Because we were shooting into straw bosses, he was actually losing a lot of piles inside the bosses, and his were glue on. But mine were actually staying on very well. And he has now changed at least that set of arrows to these TopHat ones. So this is just why I thought I'd do this. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for watching. Alright, folks, as you can see, first job with new arrow shafts. Stick them, a little bit of water, just leave them for a minute. And then all we're going to do is pull them out, drain them off, stick them on an old towel. You can see they're nice full-size shafts, and we're just going to spread them out and leave them to dry overnight. Alright, and then we'll show you what to do with them next. Alright, this is what we're building today. So this is what the young lady who's asked me to build these requested. These are the bare paw nocks for 5/16 obviously, and TopHat stainless steel field points. Now I prefer the stainless steel personally, just because they last long. They don't rust obviously. About £1 dearer, but for that £1 it's much better. That's £1 extra for 12, not each. Alright, these are standard 32-inch German spruce shafts, 5/16. They're 20 to 25 pound ammo, and we are making 28-inch arrows. The lady who these arrows are for, sorry, is shooting a 30-pound longbow at 30-inch, but her draw length is actually 26 3/4, which is why we've gone down to the 20 to 25. So these, you saw me wet them last night. So now, what we're going to do is run a bit of steel wool over them, just to take the fibres off that have expanded out. We do this first because, when you put any stain on it, which we're going to do with these, or varnish, I mean I prefer to use Danish oil personally, but each of the individual, it stops that the grain raising again. It's like the fur on top. I mean anybody who's made arrows should know this anyway. It just stops that happening again when you varnish or stain or whatever. Alright, I'll quickly do these and then we'll move on to the next bit. Hello, you can see me now. So as I say, all we're doing is taking that off. It doesn't take much. That is literally it. So I've got 24 to do. I won't bore you with doing them all in front of you. Right, hello again. Right, the next bit is, we need this. It's, you get 3 different sizes, and it's for compressing the ends of your arrow shaft. So in the kit you can buy it with 3 different sizes. So this is 5/16 obviously, 11/32s and 1/4 inch you can get. It's all the same base, so basically it's that bit, and it just screws on and then fits into your drill. This is a standard 13mm chuck. It doesn't fit in a 10mm. Now all you do is Doesn't take much. And all you're doing is compressing slightly. I'm talking over the drill. Like compressing slightly the tip where you're going to put in on the pile when you screw it on. Now, is it worth buying it? If you're doing more than a couple of sets of arrows, I would say yes. When you put in the piles on, when you actually screw them on, if you haven't done this, it tends to go underneath the wood, so you get splinters coming up. So, as I say, if you're doing more than a couple of sets, then yes, I would definitely say get one. Again, made by TopHat. This is all TopHat stuff. Right, next job is put the threads on, and I'll go through that as I do it. Right, well again. So this, if you can see inside, is used for putting the threads on the end. This is just an old Stanley vise, and rather than using a drill or a hand drill, I've gone this way. So it's just a case, this is compressed end, and it's approximately 7 full turns to put the threads on. And the reason I do it by hand rather than using a hand drill is you can feel it, so that's actually bound now. What I've found, I mean obviously these are quite low spine, and I've actually done quite a few of them already, is with the heavier spined arrows, what you get sometimes is a twist fracture or a spiral fracture within the wood. So when you're doing that, even if you're not all the way through, because obviously the wood's denser than it is on these, so hence why I'm doing this before I cut the arrows down, because I've got another end if I need it, which luckily I don't on these. As I say, these are less dense because of the spine on them. So as I say, it's quite easy to do, but it's the feeling of it. So don't use a drill. No, sorry. Just do it by hand. You could do it with, you know, the things you get in taps and dissects, the handle. You could do it with one of those, but I prefer to do it this way because it's a lot easier. There we go. And that's all there is to it. So right, on to the next one, which is just cutting the arrows. So we'll be back soon. Right, this is my cutting jig. That's just a Dremel, I suppose. It is actually a Dremel. And just some scrap wood I had laying about. Bit of an old tape measure. Knock end. Now the only trouble with these, with using the Dremel, which is going to get a bit noisy, is because if you put them in the end like so, it's too long. So hence why there's loads of smaller bits. So just a quick run. So nice and easy to do. And then obviously that's going to be the knock end, and I've just got one of these Bearpaw pencil sharpeners. That's a bit there. You can see I've put an N and a P on them, so pile and knock end, just so you know which blade. So the knock would then go in there, and just turn it on. Right, I suppose you don't want to see me colouring and doing these and putting the knocks on, so I will come back when we come to the next pit, which is piles and fletchings. Right, arrows painted, well, coloured, and 3 coats of Danish oil. So the next job, I mean, you can do this before you varnish, paint, whatever you want to do, or afterwards. Sometimes it's easy to do before, sometimes it's easy to do it afterwards, and that is to find out where your cock feather is going to go. So what you need to do is make sure the cock feather, so you've got the grain going parallel, so your cock feather wants to be on top. So when you're shooting, obviously your cock feather's towards you, that's the way it flexes. That is the strongest part. If you flex that way, it breaks easier and there is more chance of it cracking, because obviously that's the way it flexes. Also, what I tend to do, which I've been advised to do, I don't know if everybody does this, is find out which way the arrow is going to break if it breaks. So if we come up here a little bit, you can just about see there the V's, which are, so the wood is actually grained that way. So if you have them there and the cock feather upwards, so obviously they'll be pointing away from your hand when you're shooting. So if you're left-handed, they'll be shooting that way. If you're right-handed, shooting that way. They are more likely to break along those V's, because that's obviously where the wood is. That's the way the grain runs. So it's more likely to break away from your hand and shoot away, and that's the way I've always done it, and that's why I will continue to do it, and that is what I advise. I've already marked these up, as you can see. So all we do now is we'll put knock on and screw on the pile. The pile screws on exactly the same way as we did the threading. Just literally just screws over the top. I think we'll start them off by hand. I will get the drill chuck out shortly and do that, just to finish that off. In fact, this one's actually going on really easily. I'll just double check it anyway. Now I have found with the piles, these screw-on ones, once you get them on and you have shot them once or twice, you can't get them off again. So yes, it's a good idea, but you can't use this if you want to just check the weight and possibly change the piles. I would suggest just making a couple of arrows with each different weight piles. I will double check that, but that feels like it's actually gone on really well. And for the nocks, I use just a bit of this hot melt. You can see mine. A bit overkill, but it's what I've got. And it's just a case of nice and easy, doesn't take much. Get rid of that. Quick run over, make sure I've got the knock in the right place. And there we go. And if you give that, I'll finish the rest later. Right, if you give that half a minute, or a few seconds, just to cool down slightly, and then if you run, I don't know if you can see that, run the thumbnail over the top, and you get rid of that. I usually do like 3 or 4 at a time, and then go back and de-plastic them, but that's not coming off. And I find with hot melts, we'll break knocks, even these. So if you break a knock, I just warm it up, lighter or whatever, pair of pliers, and just take it off, and you'll find it leaves the hot melt. You don't even need more hot melt really, you can just warm the hot melt up and put a fresh one on. Whereas epoxy, yes, you can do similar, but you have to warm it up more than with epoxy, and you're more likely to burn the shaft underneath. One more thing I will say on this, which I should have showed you before I put the knock on, is once I've used the old pencil sharpener to shape it for the knock, I don't sand it down. What I want is the glue to be able to stick to something, and if you're sticking to just smooth, it's not going to stick as efficiently. And that's it on those. So I will get these fletched. Say I've actually started already, so I've actually finished. But what I will show you is, so if you can see on the end here, I've just taken a little nick out of the end of the feathers. Just basically just a small, thin, sharp pair of scissors. And there is a reason for it, because we're going to bind these on after I've finished, and I will show you that afterwards. But yeah, the reason the nick is there, so when I bind, I've got somewhere to put the binding right at the back, because I go centimetre in front of the feather all the way up, and then a centimetre behind it, which is why if you look at the feathers, they're actually more than a finger up, but I don't want to be catching the binding. So, all right, I will finish sorting these out, finish getting them fletched, and then come back and show you the binding. All right, hello again. This is what we do next. Here's the wrapping of the harness. That's what I've done. I just want a little bit of a tidy up on the feathers, just a bit of steam. This is why earlier on you saw me make the little notches in the back of the veins, and this is basically just a little rig I built. You can actually buy them now, but they don't go all the way to the end, all the way to the end here. Where are we? There we go. So basically they're just designed to do this bit. The little tape measure, what I'm using is actually BC55. Sorry, B55 from BCY. I found if I use thread, or thin thread, it doesn't last very long, because obviously, big longbow, you do tend to hit the handle sometimes, and it just rips through the thread, and you're just replacing it constantly. I did design this myself. These are just sewing machine tighteners, so you just tighten down. I have seen there's a slightly better one, and so instead of these pins, which I've got, and I've actually got a bit of wood that's just drilled through, they've got a bar with, so you put a spring on top and a wing nut, and obviously a couple of washers, and that just tensions it down enough. With the thicker BCY, I found that I don't actually need to use these because it's a bit too thick to go through. And the other thing is a slight design fault. Well, yeah, is I'm actually going to start and drill some holes here, because you'll see in a bit this peg here, when we use this one to come right the way up to the end of the shaft, up to about here, it's quite awkward to get it over and then pull the string back. So what I'm going to do is just drill some holes and get a peg long enough to go in, so I can actually move the peg over rather than have to pull the string over the peg. These, it's just a magnet on there on my little hooks, just for, you'll see what they're for, just for threading through it. I have found, because I have trouble with my fingers holding anything for any length of time, this, you can do this all by hand, but this you can just stop and go back to it if you need to, and it's also much better on the fingers. I do super glue on, just trim the tag end down, and then you'll see I'll push the tag end over so it does go underneath. And then for scissors, you'll see right at the end, these, that's me arterial forceps there for pulling the loop through. These scissors are very sharp, but they're also very thin. So if you look on here at the end, there it is, you can just see where it goes underneath. But when you trim, because you cut off right close and just rub it, and it disappears back underneath. These are, as I say, these are my fishing scissors, but they're actually called braid scissors, and they're very thin, very sharp. And these are also braid scissors, and they're absolutely brilliant for cutting anything. I use these when I'm making bowstrings as well. Right, let's turn the camera around and you can see how I do it. Right, there is one thing I forgot to show you when using this rig, and that's something like this. Basically it's just threaded up through. That's why there's so many pins on this, on the two tensioners. As you can see, I didn't actually do the feathers all the way up, but I just thought I'd show you that, just something if anybody ever fancies doing. Okay, hopefully you can see everything. As I say, just push that over, and it it does tension up quite well. You can see the bend. I don't know if you can from that angle, but you can see the bend in the arrow. Just wind it on, and I'll say you can stop any time. I do like to just make sure they're tight up. Because BCY as well is slightly flat on one side, this actually does help, so you get no twist, so you get the flatness on it. Also, if necessary, I do trim the fronts off the vanes as well. Just wind it up. It should climb itself. There we go. That should about do it. And then I prefer the hooked one to the straight one, but it depends what I'm doing at the time. Push over and then just start threading in. You can adjust them slightly if you need to. Right, well, let's right this edge of the screen. So, but you see what I mean about moving this over. So if I drilled the hole, this stuff is waxed, which I don't mind. And then we just carry on up to the end. Just push and keep going. I mean, you can do these as precise, you can do them as thin. I tend to do them. This is about the distance I prefer to do them. But I do know, looking at some of the other videos out there, that some people actually wind them very, very close together. And again, that's all down to personal preference. So up to the end, we'll do that one. And then this one, I think this is what the little notch is for. Take out a couple of end ones. There we go. You can see it's still actually quite tight. I don't know, to get this under. There we go, lovely. And then it will naturally fall off. I mean, you can cut the edges with a scalpel or something very sharp like that, and actually angle them down slightly. I don't tend to bother. I'd like, as long as the front's covered and done. Right, I don't need that now. A couple of winds on, and then my little loop underneath. Now this is again individual. I do 6 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, 6. Right, I'm going mad. Then just hold it in place, quick cut, and I come back under, and that leaves the 6 binds over the top. Make sure it's quite tight. And the arterial forceps, I just find it easier than pulling it through with my fingers. Oh, there we go. Just tidy up a bit if you need to. Right, and then as I said, so you see the tag end sticking up. Get these as close as you can, like that. And then it's just a case of rub over. That's it, done. Oh, I'll show you. That's just a bit of elastic. It just holds it in place, and that's it. As I said, so you can see where the bump is there, but you can't see a tag end. It saves burning. because I find when you burn them, especially on these lighter colours, you get a horrible brown mark. Straighten the feathers out. You can, if you need to, you can just adjust them slightly because sometimes they just nick it. But you'll find that will settle down. Just a bit of steam, and then it's just a case of checking for straightness. That's actually pretty good. That's actually nice and straight. Got it up on the stand, and then I did make, so it's just a hook. I was just mucking about with some copper piping. I was making something else for straightening. So all you do is obviously run down here, obviously a bit of force on it, not too much, and it just compresses the fibres and it will straighten your arrows out. And that basically is that. And then let's turn it around here. We have, they're not all finished yet, I think I've got 7 left. And that's it. So, I think that's about it. I hope you've enjoyed my video. Any questions, please ask. Thank you very much. Take care.